Welcome to Radio Bandland and really a special day or special evening, should I say.
Thank you very much.
One of Indian rock music's greatest legends is here with me. It's Bruce Lee Money from Thermal and a Quarter, singer, songwriter, most importantly, legendary guitar player. Great to see you. How are you doing?
I'm very well, Hrishi. Thank you for having me.
Bruce, last year's Bandland was quite an experience. For you guys, you were playing at home, but with a difference. A 2-day rock festival which had the Goo Goo Dolls, Deep Purple, who I'm sure you've seen a few times before live, but also an interesting band called The War on Drugs, which a lot of people caught and said, wow, this is amazing. So just your memories of that 2-day festival and, for you homeboys, Thermal and a Quarter playing on day one at the BMS live stage. How did it all pan out?
Oh, it was great. One of the best festivals we've played in a long time. Everything ran like clockwork. Sound check started on time. The gig started on time. The tech rider was met to the T. It was just great. It was really great to be part of something as well put together as the Bandland Festival last year was. I think it was a great crowd, and we performed a rather different set than what people were expecting. A lot more heavier and moodier than people kind of know us to be. And so I think on the whole, it was great. It was great to be part of it. And yeah, thanks to the whole Bandland team for having us.
Yeah, and the other bands that you caught, did you manage to stay on for day two? Or maybe even, stay on for Goo Goo Dolls on day one after your gig was over? Did you catch a War on Drugs?
Yeah. The War on Drugs, unfortunately, is the one band that we missed because they were playing just before us and we were headlining the other state. So we could just catch the spillover from their gig. We really couldn't watch it, and real bummer for that because we caught a little bit of their sound check. They were kind of checking just around the time we were. So we got a little bit of their check and they sounded huge. They sounded really fantastic. But there was no chance we could catch them live because we were, scheduled to start playing immediately after them. But we did catch the Goo Goo Dolls, and pretty much every other band that we had a chance to catch, we caught. That's what festivals are for. You're running from stage to stage. You're swallowing some glucose in between to keep you going. But I think that's basically what it's about. Yeah.
And Deep Purple, I mean, the legends just go on and on. I'm sure you've seen them a few times before.
Oh, but, man.
To have them back in Bangalore must have been great.
Yeah, it was fabulous. I mean, the first time we met them was when we opened for them in 2001. That's 23 years ago. And, it was incredible. It was at that, we were kind of just getting into our career at that point. And it was great to see how that whole machinery worked, how, a band like that with their crew and their engineers and their setup and everything else. It was the first time we were seeing something like that on an international scale. So in a sense, they were part of our musical education in a way. And to see them again live 22 years later, much older, but still bloody rocking it out, man, that was incredible.
Did you manage to catch a punk rock band called Amel and the Sniffers?
Very much, of course, yeah.
What did you think of them?
Oh, great. I mean, again, Aussie band full of rambunctious Aussie attitude and super energy and everything else. I think in terms of curation, the festival was great. I think the thought put into the kind of acts that were on each stage and which act followed which, and just the whole thing was done extremely well. So there wasn't a single kind of jarring note saying, okay, how is this band here or anything like that? It was great. I think every band was perfect for the stage and the setting, and overall great festival.
Well, this month you've had a release, Bruce, Raise the Bar. Mm-hmm. It's like a retro rock song, kind of like Journey the band or REO Speedwagon. If I think back to all my heroes, speak to me of your collaborator Rahul Mathan, please.
Yeah, I mean, I would also say Police in there somehow. Some of that initial bit of Police in terms of the groove and everything else. But yeah, very retro rock. So Rahul's an old friend. He was a guitar student of mine for quite a few years, and he's been a friend and fan of the band, I think, from the late 90s. And he also happens to be one of the country's foremost, lawyers, and runs this amazing firm called Trilegal. And so, I mean, he's collaborated with us in the past. There's a song that we kind of wrote together a few years ago. It was released as part of a Takarani album. And he's like a real music buff. And then, so his firm and for him personally, this was a kind of personal milestone that he had reached, and he wanted to kind of celebrate it by writing a song. And it was a pretty unusual request because he came to us and said, look, I want you to write a thermal song, but I want you to tell a different story. I want you to tell a story about, what we have done and what we have accomplished together and so on. So it was very, unusual collaboration in that sense. And it's not the first time we've collaborated with, not really active performing musicians in a sense. And so it was fun to do it and to execute it. And I think the song speaks for itself. It's a really fun, retro rock style song. And we're playing it for the first time tomorrow in Chennai.
Beautiful. What world will come out of this, the 2022 single release? It's a cynical song, Bruce. What were you thinking when you were writing it?
Man, I think we've been kind of true to our times throughout the last 28 years of our career.
You have, yeah.
At that point, it was just post-COVID and all the crap that's going on in the world then and going on now. In many ways, the pandemic and COVID it felt like there was an opportunity to do a hard reset. A lot of shit just got completely reinvented. A lot of stuff changed drastically forever, perhaps. And there was an opportunity to really kind of do better than what we did before. I don't know if we are, but that's human nature, I suppose, generally. And that song was just a little bit of a party song that wondered aloud as to what world would come out of this.
2021, Inside Out. It's basically a love song, isn't it? A nice, smooth vibe and a love song.
It's a love song, but it's also a song about, being trapped inside something for a very long time and wondering when you're gonna get out. Is the inside now the new outside? And is the outside the new inside? All the upside down feelings that come with what I think the whole world went through for those 2 or 3 years. So yeah, I think if you look at the single Tilt, Inside Out, What World, they're very kind of COVID influenced in terms of 3 years of just this enormous, unprecedented dislocation of everyone's life and peace of mind and whatever else. So yeah, those songs are all from that belief.
You actually segued in beautifully into my next question. I mean, Tilt actually looks to me about looking for new perspectives, new way of looking at things. I love the Clark Kent and the Superman angle.
Oh, wow, okay, you actually know the words.
Yeah, I mean, it came out straight after the World Gone Mad album, and you're right. I mean, it looks to me like you were going through that old phase when you wanted to look at things in a new perspective. There was a little bit of cynicism in there. So I think in that aspect, since A World Gone Mad was a precursor to Tilt, would you say it's an angry album? Is that a good way to describe it?
World Gone Mad was alternatively angry, despairing, furious, but coldly so. Tender. There's a song called Stone Circle, which is about your family and
I love it. The family song. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's quite a roller coaster in that sense, and we had no intention of making it as relevant as it was, being released on March 20th, 2020, when the lockdown came in. So it was people called it prescient and all of that stuff, but it was just what we were feeling for the last 3 or 4 years that we wrote it, and it just so happened that it was released at that time when it happened to just make it incredibly relevant. And Tilt, in fact, was the first song that we wrote, from our homes. We couldn't meet. We were, locked up in our little home studios and sending files up and down. So it was a song about that. Like, hey, we need a new perspective here. How are we going to do this? We couldn't play live. We couldn't do anything. So yeah, again, I think we've kind of stuck true to telling the stories of our times.
I really like NFA. It's about people in power and how they have control over our lives. I mean, it's just absolutely fabulous, and I'm so glad you mentioned Stone Circle. I love that it's about close ones and family. I shouldn't be doing this, comparing bands and this and that, but actually take it as a compliment. A Thermal and a Quarter song is a Thermal and a Quarter song, but sometimes they remind me of the legends of yore. Where do we got to go now? As such a Metallica and Pearl Jam meets Hootie and the Blowfish kind of vibe. I mean, it's fantastic. Talk to me a little about where do we got to go now?
Oh, wow. Okay. Metallica and Hootie and the Blowfish. I would not have thought about those two worlds colliding. Where we got to go now? The interesting song, because lyrically, I wrote those lyrics, I think, in the early 2000s. So it was at least 15, 16 years old. when we finally set it to music. Again, it was as a songwriter, you have all these bits and pieces of lyrics and songs that you filed away through the years. Things that never became anything, ideas that come don't realize into songs immediately and just get filed away. You've got a little folder, a WIP folder on your computer, which has all these bits and pieces of song. And when we were writing the whole album, this surfaced, and it seemed again to be a perfect fit into what the album's message was. Where do we got to go now? The time has come, the chorus said, to speak of many things, and which is of course a little tongue-in-cheek take on Lewis Carroll's the Walrus and the Carpenter, where the the walrus and the carpenter talk to the oysters, and the time has come, the walrus said, to speak of many things, of shoes and ships and cabbage wax and of shoes and ships and sealing wax, of cabbages and kings. I think that's the poem. But so I riffed on that a little bit. But it was the second verse, which talks about the war is here, the president said, and we are on the right side. Give me your sons, your daughters, all. And so it was again, it resonated very strongly with the mood of the album, and it just happened to all come together when we were putting A World Gone Mad.
Bruce, I don't even live in Bangalore, but every time I listen to Bangalore blues, I wish I was living in Bangalore. It's just such a wonderful, wonderful song, and that, if I'm not mistaken, featured in 2015's No Wall Too High.
Yeah.
Which in itself was a legendary album, because it was launched in Bonn for the 70th anniversary of the UN.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about Bangalore Blues and that album and that phase of your life.
Well, that is again a pretty interesting album, because we collaborated with a non-musician who happened to work at the United Nations University in Germany at that point, Matthew Kurian, who very sadly just a few months ago passed away from lung cancer. He was a good friend. And he hit us up out of the blue, and he's an old Bangalorean, and he'd been following the band in his own way for many years. But he said, "Look, I've got these songs. They're all about on the themes of division." And it was also the 25th anniversary of German reunification, the fall of the Berlin Wall. And so all of that was a really inspiring story for us. And when he sent me, the snatches of lyrics he had written, he didn't have like completed songs. He had all these, again, bits and pieces, like workshopping bits of lyrics. But when I saw all of that, there was something that, again, resonated very deeply. And so that's what started off the No Wall Too High as an album. And I think it was fairly quickly written. It was written and recorded in the span of 4 or 5 months. And we managed to get that gig to play at the 70th anniversary of the founding of the UN in Germany, in Bonn. And Bangalore Blues was a song from that album. Bangalore Blues actually was not a song that he co-wrote. It was a song that I wrote, but it was something that again fit very, very easily with the album. And the album throughout is talks about division, but division in various ways, not just divisions in terms of a wall, but the divisions between old and the young, the divisions between lovers who are no longer lovers, the divisions between the things that in your own head, your beliefs, and so very often we find, at least in modern times, that we are sometimes forced to reconcile two very, very opposing beliefs at the same time. True. Right, and forced to kind of live with that and make our peace with it. So in many ways, it's about all of those things. And Bangalore Blues is an interesting song, because the little street noises that begin the beat were actually recorded for our second album, Jupiter Cafe, in 2001. So the street noises you're hearing are from 2001, but the music you're hearing is from 2015. And so this is for the geeks. It's not for for anyone. But it's just interesting that that's how it came together.
The other 2015 album was The Scene. I mean, it's a seminal Tamil and a quarter album. A lot of fans will say, boss, you start listening to the band, these are the ones that you got to start listening to. It's got so many jazz funk elements to it. I mean, I love Meds. I love Like Me. Like Me and Meds are my two favorites in the album. So just a comment on The Scene.
Yeah, I mean, by 2015, we had been in the scene, so to speak, for almost 20 years. And we'd seen a lot of stuff, shall we say. And so it just seemed to be, a good kind of snarky take on everything that we've seen and experienced. And it's interesting how when we still play a lot of those songs, and when we do college gigs or pub gigs in even in far-flung places like we do Calcutta or we do Mysore or something like that, and there'll be some kids in the audience who are just beginning to play in bands and so on, and they'll come and say, that scene, the song, the scene, it's my life story. It's exactly what is happening to me now. And while that feels good, it also feels bad in a way, saying, "Shit, man, we didn't write it to be true for so long. It was true for us, it was true for others, but it's a shame that sometimes those things just continue to be true." So, again, an interesting album to write.
Tough job to pick out of 28 songs in the Three Wheels, Nine Loves 2012 album. But I'm a Bombay Tamil. So the moment I hear meter mala 1.5, the Tamil in me starts coming to the fore. And Black and Yellow Cabs are such an inseparable. Sorry?
Vandudunga sir.
Vandudunga sir, correct, yeah. So, and Black and Yellow Cabs are such a universal thing, isn't it? I mean, in Bangalore, in Bombay, I love that one. And of course, Terrible Trouble, I love the raw acoustic vibe on that one.
Okay.
So just your comments on those two songs.
You're taking me on a whole memory trip about just our music. I mean, is that what this interview was supposed to be, or are we getting sidetracked?
As you can take it, I'm a fan. You give me an inch, I'll park a car.
Okay, that's very nice of you. But I mean, Three Wheels, Nine Lives was again a crazy 28-song opus, and everyone said, "What the hell are you guys doing? People are releasing singles and you want to release a triple album." Not just one album, but a triple one. So, but that's how we rolled. It's like, screw that. We're going to do a triple album. Terrible Trouble was written for my father-in-law, actually. And so ours is a mixed marriage. And, I'm Tambram, my wife is Malu Christian. And as you can probably expect, there was not a single box that I had ticked correctly in the marriage checklist. I was not British complexion. I was not software engineer. I was not in USA. I was not, of course, the same religion and caste and creed. I was also a musician. So I basically scored if there was minus points possible, I had minus points there. So there was all kinds of fireworks. And so, I wrote that song for him, saying, Terrible Trouble.
Wow. And this is pretty much going to be the last album we're talking of before we wrap. Plan B, I mean, way back in 2005, 2006, I can't get over the Frank Zappa reference. It really spoke to me. And of course, Paper Puli, which basically means paper tigers, and Chinese items. Bend the world. Though I've got to say the production levels are so basic. I'm sure you listen to it yourself and say, my God, can I do a remaster of this?
I mean, Plan B actually was one of our better ones. You should hear the first album, .com. That was basic. That was basic. It just seems like a century away. 2005 seems so long ago. And, the kind of stuff we had access to back then in terms of technology and recording and even amazing people to work with. I think we had a really good run in the sense that we did work with some amazing people. But of course, I mean, since then, things have changed so much for the better. And in terms of just the access to facilities and recording and technology that, I think we're doing a lot better now.
So do you and Leslie Charles, is it an enjoyable thing co-producing? I mean, World Gone Mad was you and him together, right? For those of you who don't know, Leslie Charles is their bass player and co-producer on the last album, which is the 2020 release, which we're talking about.
In terms of co-producing, it's like, I think we all produce in a way. We all, it's not like there's any one person giving the song's direction and so on. And Leslie has been for the last, from World Gone Mad and on, he is basically set up the recordings and mixed all the songs. So in that sense, he's done that. But the shape of the songs, the structure, arrangement, I think it's still very much a collaborative process. And that's how it's always been in the band. It's a big organic mess. And that's how we like it. Yeah.
How beautiful. This is the most asked question in the world as far as Bruce Lee money is concerned. How did that name come? Who was your father? Was your father a Bruce Lee fan?
Yes, my father was a massive Bruce Lee fan. He was also a bit of a crazy guy. I mean, I want to write a book about my parents at some point because they were, if you can think about it, they were Tambram hippies. Which is
wow. Yeah.
Really strange, again, commingling of terms, if you will. But Yeah, so they were a rather interesting. I mean, my dad was a very interesting person. I lost him way back in '93. My mom is very much around and still doing great. But yeah, they were very interesting people, and they decided to call me Bruce Lee Money. I would get introduced at parties that this is our little Chinese Brahmin, and while I don't identify with the Brahmin or Hindu or anything anymore, it was very strange and interesting. And it's a conversation starter anywhere we go.
Yeah, correct. And thermal and a quarter, where did that come from?
Oh, I mean, now that you know that there's what the story behind Bruce Lee Money, I think the other stories will have to go online and figure out there are lots of stories about thermal and a quarter. Why? Because across the last 28 years, we've been asked it way too many times. And so after all, we just invented new things every time someone asked us what it was. So if you want me to make up a new one right now, I will.
I'm thinking a quarter of your favorite beverage with thermals in cold weather.
Been there, done that. That's been done.
That's all done. Lovely. Amazing. Thank you for the ride and rock and roll, man. Thermal and a quarter and you, Bruce Lee Money. And enjoy the gig in Chennai because that's the next one that's coming up.
Thank you. Yes, we're driving out tomorrow. Chennai is always good because we choose to do a road trip. It's just nice. We can have lunch at Murugan Idli on the way back.
Beautiful. Thank you for your time.
94.3 Radio 1.